Welcome to the Cheating and Love Tales channel. Silence. I remember the night like the ticking of a clock in an empty room, each second stretching into an eternity. It was so quiet. I could hear my own breathing, slow and steady at first. Then it caught in my chest, and a kind of dread washed over me. Dread, because I knew something was wrong in my house. It started as a cold weight in my gut, heavier than any barbell, at the gym where Olivia worked. My hand shook, not visibly, but I felt the tremor deep inside. The living room lamp cast feeble light across the couch, and the rest was shadow. I stood there in the middle of it, still, practically holding my breath. I had just come back from a late-night walk, one of those restless circuits around the block I'd taken ever since my insomnia got worse. I'd left in the evening to clear my head, to keep from eavesdropping on hours of recorded chatter stored on my phone, my own personal madness. And now that I was home, the hush of the place was deafening, like it was waiting for something. Or for me to realize something. I forced out a breath. The kids were away for the weekend, staying at my mother-in-law's place upstate. Normally that meant a quiet house, yes, but also a chance for Olivia and me to be closer, to reconnect. Lately, though, it just meant open spaces where the echo of my loneliness could bounce off every wall. And as I listened harder, there it was, a soft murmur from behind the door to our bedroom. I froze. My skin prickled in that creeping, ancient way it does when we sense a predator. No reason to fear anyone in my own home, right? But fear rose anyway. Then I heard her voice, low, breathy, but not in the intimate, welcome sense. It was the kind of whisper shared between two people who aren't supposed to be whispering at all. That was the first blow under the breath. A moral blow. A gasp that stuck in my throat. My marriage had existed in a slow freeze for months now, but this was the crack that threatened the entire structure. I stepped forward, every muscle tensed, and pressed my ear to the door. Brandon. Her voice, with that hitch of excitement, that unguarded softness. She never used that tone with me anymore. My heart hammered so hard it blurred my hearing. I stood there, paralyzed. This was real. It was more real than any nightmare or suspicion or half-imagined fear. Olivia giggled in a hushed way, and a man's voice responded. Brandon Pierce, the gym's manager, the one she described as bright and driven, the one who understood her vision. My wife's lover. They must have thought I was still out on my walk, or maybe they just didn't care. I closed my eyes, and behind my lids came the first flash of memory. Me in my small office, hooking up that tiny wireless microphone to her fitness bracelet. She had laughed when I gave it to her. But I said I wanted to write about her passion for training, about her fire. And she believed me, or pretended she did. Maybe she was flattered. Or maybe she guessed my real motive. The door wasn't locked. I inched it open, just enough to see them without being seen. What I saw froze my blood. Olivia's arms around Brandon's shoulders, their bodies pressed together. Sheets half tangled around their legs. The flicker of a bedside lamp across bare skin. The mingled, breathy hush of desire and complicity. He brushed aside her hair, leaving kisses along her neck, and she stifled a moan by biting her lip. It was so quiet in that moment, except for their whispers and urgent breathing. So horribly intimate. I didn't move. I couldn't. A wave of nauseating disbelief punched me in the stomach. I wanted to smash the door open, to tear him away from her, but my limbs refused to budge. And so I just watched, chest tight, adrenaline scorching my veins. She reached up, running her fingers through his sandy blonde hair, gripping his shoulders like they'd done this 1,000 times already. She whispered something I couldn't make out, but I caught the tone. Tenderness, affection, lust, everything I'd craved from her for so long, but only found in her old recorded words, in the moments I'd replayed late at night on my phone. I must have made a noise, a sharp intake of breath, a creak of the floor, because suddenly they froze. Brandon lifted his head, eyes wide. Olivia turned her face toward the door, and our gazes locked for a single heartbeat. Shock flared in her expression, and she pulled the sheets up to cover herself. Brandon scrambled upright, swearing under his breath. "Daniel." Olivia's voice quivered. A single word, like a plea, an explanation, an apology, all tangled into one. Brandon just stared. I could see the panic flicker behind his eyes, but also a strange flash of defiance, as if he was ready to defend what he was doing. My fists clenched. In that moment, time slowed. I heard my own thoughts, calm at first, like the hush before a storm. I realized how quickly that calm was about to morph into rage. My left hand twitched at my side. My pulse hammered. Without another word, I slammed the door shut, locking them in. A spike of anger shot through me. And yet I said nothing. I waited in the hallway, breathing heavily. Then I heard Olivia's footsteps approach the door. The doorknob rattled. "Open the door," she said, voice trembling. I walked away. Didn't slam a fist into the wall. Didn't shout. Just walked, each step echoing. I needed air or else I was sure I'd burst. My mind spun backward to how we got here. We met in college. She was studying sports science. I was an English major. She had that unstoppable energy from day one. Always on the move, always pushing herself. And I was the quiet one, the note-taker, the writer. Opposites attract, as they say. For years, it worked. I wrote articles for local journals, did some freelance editing. She found a decent job at a local fitness center, quickly becoming a star trainer, beloved by her clients. We built a life, a house, kids. I thought we were happy, or at least stable. But over the last year, something changed. She'd grown distant, her eyes always drifting off to something I couldn't see. Late nights at the gym, new clients who consumed her attention. She started wearing that smile for other people, while at home, her laughter dried up. I'd tried everything. Date nights, bringing flowers, even a weekend trip with the kids, but the closeness never returned. I started suspecting she was confiding in someone else, so I got paranoid. That's when I gave her the microphone disguised as a small fitness gadget. Maybe it was insane, maybe it was morally wrong, but I was desperate. I told myself it was for my new writing project, that I wanted to capture her inspirational speeches to clients. She smiled at the idea, or maybe at the twisted brilliance of it. In any case, she wore it, and I listened. At first, I only heard normal gym chatter, encouragement for clients, jokes with coworkers. I typed away at my desk, constructing the skeleton of a new novel. But then the cracks appeared. She'd whisper to someone named Brandon. He sounded bright, confident, with a certain arrogance in how he teased her. She'd laugh at things I didn't find funny, and their voices got lower, more personal. I was addicted to listening, to hunting for proof. Meanwhile, the kids were oblivious. They still saw Mom and Dad as a unit. I clung to the notion that maybe I was just jealous or reading too much into it. Then came the day I heard her say, "He's not like you. You make me feel alive." I felt something die in me that day. But the real betrayal was hearing her moan his name in hushed, breathy tones on a late-night recording that ended with a suspicious cutoff. My worst suspicions were confirmed. I told myself I'd confront her calmly, like a grown man. But then the kids needed me. My mother needed me. Always something. Always a reason to pretend for one more day. I tried to muster the courage, but a deeper fear gripped me. Losing my family. Losing what tiny self-worth I had left. So I kept silent. A silence that deepened into the moment I found them in my own bedroom, entangled, no regard for me at all. A few minutes later, they both emerged from the bedroom, Brandon tugging on his t-shirt, Olivia wrapped in a robe, eyes red. They found me in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, staring out the window. The overhead light hummed. I glanced at their reflection in the glass, but didn't turn around. "Daniel," Olivia said, voice thick. I could smell the slight tang of her perfume, the one I'd given her on her birthday. She used to wear it for me. "We should talk." I said nothing. My hands lay flat on the countertop. My knuckles were pale, fists half clenched. Brandon cleared his throat. "This, we didn't mean." "Shut up." My voice was quiet, level, but it carried enough force to slice the air. I heard him let out a shaky breath. Olivia stepped closer. "Please look at me." I turned. My eyes locked on hers. I tried to keep my face cold. My heart pounded, but I forced composure. "You do the talking," I said. "I'll just listen." She swallowed hard. "It started as, it was." "Go on." "You said it's not like with me. He's alive." "Right." My voice trembled at the end, anger welling up. I hadn't meant to let that slip, but it was tearing its way out. Her eyes widened. "How do you?" I tapped my temple. "I hear everything these days." She blinked back tears. I felt alone. "You were always at your desk or lost in your own world." "You mean trying to keep this family afloat while you played around with your alive friend?" Brandon lifted his hands, as if to calm things. "Daniel, I'm sorry, man. We connected. It wasn't supposed to go this far." I locked eyes with him, my jaw rigid. "You had your hands on my wife in my own bed. Don't stand there and pretend it just happened." Olivia stifled a sob, backing away slightly. "We never meant to hurt you like this." I felt my control slip, anger seething beneath my skin. But I pressed my lips together, inhaled a shaky breath, and forced myself to remain outwardly calm. This was a new kind of fury, I see, deliberate, coiling inside me. "You did hurt me, though," I murmured. "And you knew you would." Neither of them spoke for a moment. It felt like the final hush after a bomb goes off, when the dust is still settling. Then Brandon put a hand on Olivia's shoulder. "I think I should go," he muttered. She didn't reply, just nodded through tears. He walked out, head down. A part of me wanted to lunge at him, to release the primal rage I could feel thrashing behind my ribs. But I didn't. My entire body trembled with the strain of holding back. Then it was just Olivia and me, the two of us standing in the sallow kitchen light. She was breathing fast, her face streaked with tears. I stared at her, thinking of all the little memories we once shared. Our wedding day under a warm summer sky, the births of our children, the nights we lay side by side, planning our future. And here we were now, separated by an ocean of betrayal. She opened her mouth, closed it, then finally said in a near whisper, "I'm sorry." I laughed quietly, but there was no joy in it. "So am I." The days that followed felt like drowning in thick syrup. The pace of life slowed, yet each moment was a slog. I moved through the house like a phantom, hardly sleeping, hardly eating. Olivia and I avoided each other, speaking only if the kids were around. Even that was forced. She slept in the guest room. At night, I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling. The memory of her with him burned into my eyelids. I'd always considered myself a good father, a decent husband. Not perfect, but faithful. Now I questioned every choice I'd ever made. I listened to more of the recordings, scouring them for answers, for the moment she crossed the line. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was trying to figure out where I'd gone wrong by spying on my wife's most private thoughts. But I felt justified. She had done worse. And the more I listened, the deeper that cold blade of betrayal sank into my chest. I kept hearing that phrase, "He's not like you. You make me feel alive." Her voice was hushed, dripping with longing. I must have replayed it 100 times, each time feeling the surge of bitterness, so profound I had to grip the edge of my desk to keep from screaming. And then came the other phrase, from a later recording, just a week ago. "Daniel's gone numb. He's barely there. I need more." Every time I heard those words, I'd close my eyes and see her face contorted with the same desperate sadness I felt. Part of me tried to pity her, but mostly, I hated what she'd turned me into. A jealous, paranoid man rummaging through secret tapes in the dead of night. During the daytime, I threw myself into fatherhood. Took the kids to the park, oversaw their homework, even made elaborate meals that I hardly touched myself. The kids seemed to sense something off. They shot me worried glances, and I forced smiles, hoping to preserve their innocence a little while longer. Meanwhile, Olivia stuck to her routine, heading to the gym early, returning late, always with that ghost of heartbreak in her eyes. We both knew we were on borrowed time. Eventually, the confrontation had to come. One evening after dinner, we tucked the kids in bed. I waited at the table, clearing plates, my heart thudding. When she came back downstairs, I motioned for her to sit. She did, wordlessly. "We can't keep living like this," I said, voice steady but laced with tension. She bowed her head. "I know. You said you felt alone." I struggled for calm. "But I was here, every day. Why didn't you tell me?" Her eyes flicked up. "I tried, Daniel. You were locked in your stories, in your own mind. Every time I brought up my needs, my longing for something more, I felt you drifting away, even as I spoke." I shook my head. "I never wanted you to feel that. You were my anchor, still are." Her lower lip trembled. "I can't be your anchor anymore. I'm not sure I ever really knew how. When we were younger, everything was simpler. Now I need something else. Something I found with Brandon." My anger flared. But again, it was that cold anger. "Do you love him?" She hesitated. "I don't know. I just know I don't feel numb when I'm with him." That cut me deeper than any blade. "And me? Do you feel numb with me?" She sighed. "Daniel, I see your pain, but it's like there's a wall between us. I don't know if we can tear it down." Then she repeated, quietly, "I'm sorry." I said nothing. There was nothing left to say. A tear escaped my eye, but I brushed it aside before she could see. Over the following week, I drifted through old memories. Our wedding photos, the ring on my finger, the photos of our children lining the living room walls. Each image had a new weight, a subtle heartbreak that pressed on my chest. And as the weekend approached, I felt the dread of finality. That's when Olivia told me she needed some time away to think. She was going to take the kids to her mother's place for a while. "Give me space," or so she said. I recognized it for what it was, the beginning of the end. She left on a Friday morning, packing the kids into the car. I stood by the porch, arms folded, trying not to betray the fury raging inside me. Both kids hugged me goodbye. They were confused, but I forced a gentle smile, telling them I'd see them soon. As the car pulled away, the last flicker of normalcy vanished. The house felt emptier than ever. I spent the day listening to every last recording I had. A twisted farewell to illusions. I scribbled notes, half-formed lines of a story I didn't even want to finish. Each word felt heavy, like I was dragging myself through the mud. And then I found a snippet of audio that made my blood run cold. It was from 2 days before I walked in on them. Olivia's voice, hushed yet urgent. "Brandon, I think I should tell him. He deserves the truth." Brandon's answer, "You can't. He'll never forgive you. He'll take the kids. Is that what you want?" A pause, then she sighed. "No. This is killing me." I shut off the recording, and an eerie calm settled over me. They were afraid I'd fight for full custody. Afraid I'd tear the children away if I discovered their affair. I realized something crucial. They didn't see me as a partner or even a broken man. They saw me as a threat. The notion that I was reduced to a theoretical monster, capable of punishing her using our children, sliced deeper than I thought possible. And in that moment, I decided I needed to do something. Something that would break this chain of secrecy and half-truths. Something they wouldn't see coming. The next day, I visited the gym. Brandon was behind the counter, checking membership logs on a tablet. At first, he tried to give me a casual nod, but then he registered the look in my eyes and grew uneasy. "Daniel," he said quietly, stepping aside. "We shouldn't do this here." I shrugged, voice low. "You're right, but I'm here anyway." We were in the middle of a busy Saturday. Music thumped from overhead speakers, People lifted weights. The constant hum of conversation and treadmills filled the space. Brandon glanced around, nervous. "Look, man, I'm sorry." "You keep saying that," I interrupted, stepping closer. My posture was rigid, my pulse pounding in my ears. "But you're still seeing her, aren't you?" He didn't answer. A flicker of guilt crossed his face. "Answer me," I growled, my composure fraying. A few people glanced our way. Brandon cleared his throat. "Let's go to the office. Please." I followed him across the gym floor. A few curious eyes turned our way, but I kept my gaze fixed on his back. In the office, a small windowless room with only a desk and a couple of chairs, he closed the door behind us. He sank into the chair. I remained standing, arms crossed, glaring down at him. "Well?" I asked. He sighed, pressing fingers to his temples. "Yes," he admitted. "We're talking, but nothing more's happened since that night." "She's confused, Daniel. She's my wife." My anger crackled through each word. "I never wanted to break up your marriage," Brandon said, looking genuinely pained. We just connected. She said she felt invisible around you, and when we talked." I slammed my fist on the desk. "Don't you dare try to justify it. You looked me in the eye, in my own house, after sleeping with her in my bed." He flinched at the raw fury in my voice. I'm sorry." That was the last time I could stomach hearing those words from him. "No, you're not." He sat rigid, knuckles white, as he gripped the edge of the desk. Then he looked up at me, mustering a thin veneer of courage. "What do you want, Daniel? If it's a fight, let's do it. But that won't change anything. She doesn't love you anymore. She's made that clear." The blow landed with excruciating clarity. I felt my stomach twist. But strangely, I smiled, a grim, humorless curve of my lips. "You think you're doing her a favor, giving her that spark I couldn't provide." He swallowed. I saw a twitch of doubt in his eyes. "She's happier. You know nothing about happiness," I snapped, "or about what it means to stay when things get hard, to raise kids, to build a life." His voice faltered. You're not the same man she married." I leaned over the desk. "And you're not worthy of her. But that's her call, not mine. So I'll make my own call." The tension in the room coiled like a snake. Brandon kept glancing at the door, as if worried someone would barge in. I said nothing more. I gave him one last look, a look meant to plant fear in his soul. And then I left. That night, in the silence of my empty house, I felt rage and sorrow churn in my chest. My phone buzzed with messages from Olivia, messages I ignored. She tried to call once, but I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was shaky as she asked me to pick up. She said she missed me, wanted to talk, but I didn't believe it. Missed me? Now, of all times. No, it was guilt talking. In that swirl of bitterness, I remembered the reason I was living. My children. I thought about them, their wide, innocent eyes, how they deserved a father who wasn't a shell of resentment. And that's when an idea occurred to me. A plan more destructive than throwing punches or filing for divorce outright. A plan that involved their sense of security. I wrestled with that idea all through the night, my mind drifting between guilt and justification. By morning, I resolved on a cold course of action. Cold is also an emotion, I muttered to my reflection. If Olivia had pushed me to this, if Brandon had no remorse, then I would show them the price of betrayal. Early Sunday, I drove up to my mother-in-law's place. The kids bounded out to greet me, expecting a normal visit. I enveloped them in a hug, feeling the conflict surge inside me. But I set aside my pain for their sake. "We're going for a drive," I told them. "Just the three of us." Olivia appeared in the doorway, frowning. "Daniel, what are you doing here so early?" "Taking the kids out," I said curtly. She sighed. "We should talk later." She glanced at her mother, uncertain. But I was already guiding the kids to the car. She followed, stopping by the driver's door. "Please, Daniel," she whispered. Don't shut me out. I stared ahead, jaw tight. We'll be back, I managed, and then I got in and started the engine. She stared after us, arms folded, looking so small and vulnerable. For a moment, doubt hit me. But then I remembered how she looked in Brandon's arms, the words she used, alive, not numb. I shook off the hesitation. We drove for hours, stopping to let the kids stretch their legs, grabbing snacks along the way. The children were full of laughter and questions, oblivious to the turmoil I was drowning in. My goal was to make new memories with them, a day that would contrast sharply with what was to come, because the notion of revenge had settled in my mind, the most brutal form I could muster, leaving her with a shattered sense of stability, the way she'd shattered mine. Late that afternoon, we returned to the house. I told the kids to run upstairs and pick out a game for us to play. They raced off, excited. That's when I sent Olivia a single text. We need to finalize our separation. I can't do this anymore. Within minutes, my phone rang. I answered in a flat tone. Yes, she sounded panicked. Daniel, what's going on? You're scaring me. Good, I replied. A raw edge colored my voice. You should be scared. I've been living in fear for months. She started crying. Don't punish me with the kids, please. You punished me first. Daniel, I never wanted to destroy you, she sobbed. Then you shouldn't have slept with him in my bed. A silence, broken only by her ragged breathing. Then she whispered, I know I'm a monster to you. I'm sorry. I am. But we need to talk face to face before you do anything irreversible. I looked at my children's closed bedroom door. Come tonight, alone. She hesitated. I'll be there. I spent the evening with my kids, reading them stories, letting them stay up later than usual. I was full of gentle smiles, but inside my stomach churned. All I kept thinking was how I was about to rip their stable world apart, and I hated Olivia for forcing me into that position. Maybe that was my own twisted view, but I clung to it. It justified the coldness that had seized my soul. Shortly after I tucked the kids in, Olivia arrived. The tension in the hallway was palpable. We stepped into the living room. She looked around, tears brimming, as if the space itself might vanish under her feet. What's your plan? She asked, hugging herself. I stood by the fireplace, arms crossed. I'm leaving, I said simply. But first, we settle who gets the kids. She flinched. They need both of us, Daniel. Don't tear them away. You're the one who tore our family in two. I spat, my control cracking. She tried to speak, but I cut her off with a raised hand. Save your apologies. I'm not a saint here either. I manipulated you, bug your bracelet. We're both guilty, but you went further. You broke vows, made me question my very identity. She cried silently, shoulders shaking. I couldn't breathe in this marriage anymore. My eyes burned with tears that refused to fall. So you found someone else. I get it. She stepped closer, trembling. I never stopped loving you, don't you see? You have a warped idea of love. I growled, voice rising. Love is staying, working it out, or at least coming clean before you tear someone's life apart. You couldn't even give me that courtesy. She was sobbing openly now. I'm sorry, she repeated, like a broken record. We stood there, both breathing hard. I wanted to shake her, to demand she take back every moment of betrayal. But the damage was done. Words wouldn't undo it. You'll have them for the week, I said, referencing the kids. Then I want them on weekends. We'll arrange something more formal soon. Her face contorted in anguish. Daniel, you can't just. I can. And I will. She slumped onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. I wish I could turn back time. For a flicker of a second, I almost comforted her. The old me, the caretaker, the father of her children, wanted to hold her. Instead, I stayed rooted, my fists clenched at my sides. We've both made our choices, she sniffled, looking up at me. What about Brandon? My laugh was sharp and bitter. Ask him yourself. He can pay your bills, bring you coffee in bed. You said he makes you feel alive. Good luck with that. Then I added, almost spitting the words, he'll find someone else to impress soon enough. She shook her head, tears glistening. I turned away, the finality of it sinking in. My voice dropped, trembling with wrath barely contained. I wanted to punish you for betraying me, but it hurts too damn much to keep punishing myself in the process. I'm done. She rose to her feet, inching toward me. Daniel, please. I raised a hand again. Stop. Don't make this harder. In the silence that followed, I felt my chest tighten, as if my heart was ripping in two. A fleeting memory of happier days swam into my mind. Her laughing at one of my jokes, her eyes shining with genuine warmth. That woman was gone now, replaced by someone else. When morning came, she was gone. The kids stayed with me, for the moment. I was bleary-eyed from lack of sleep, but a hollow resolution propped me up. I tidied the house, sorted my papers, made breakfast for the kids. My phone buzzed with messages from both Olivia and Brandon, alternating between pleas and half apologies. I ignored them. In the afternoon, I packed a single suitcase, threw in clothes, some notebooks, personal items. I told the kids they'd be staying with their mother for a while after school. They nodded, curious but trusting that Dad had a reason for all this. My heart panged with guilt, but my anger overshadowed it. 2 days later, I took them to Olivia's mother again. This time, Olivia was waiting, anxious. She tried to meet my gaze, but I avoided her eyes. The kids clung to me in confusion. I explained gently that I needed to be away for work, and that they'd be fine with their mom. My oldest, wide-eyed, asked, "But when are you coming home?" I forced a brittle smile. "Soon, buddy. I just have to figure some stuff out." I kissed them both. Then I gave Olivia a silent glance. She looked distraught, tears pooling. I walked out, my footsteps heavy. The next phase of my life was an empty motel room on the outskirts of Seattle. Old wallpaper, flickering lamp, the stale smell of cigarettes. I'd stare at the ceiling fan for hours, letting the hum fill my ears, letting the numbness settle in my bones. The madness of losing everything still churned inside me. But now, instead of mania, it was a cold acceptance. I spent my days applying for new writing gigs, trying to distract myself, but each night I'd revisit the memory of catching them. Rage would well up, and I'd slam a fist into the pillow or the old, chipped nightstand. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't wash away the image. I imagined them together, Olivia and Brandon, no longer needing secrecy, building the new life that once belonged to me. It made my stomach turn, fueled the fury that smoldered under the veneer of my calm. That anger became my companion, a dark friend that whispered in my ear late at night. Destroy them. Show them you're not worthless. Revenge. The word pulsed in my mind, but what shape could it take? I was already extracting my presence, fracturing the family. Wasn't that enough? A part of me wanted more. A final blow that would shatter Brandon's illusions of a perfect union. I wanted him to feel the fear of losing something precious. Opportunity came in the form of a call from my lawyer friend, Kyle. He'd heard about my situation and offered to help. He told me that if I wanted full custody, it was possible to fight on the grounds of adultery and moral conduct. Washington wasn't known for harsh rulings in such cases, but there might be a path. The thought of ripping the kids away from Olivia made me feel sick. Yet the darker side of me wanted to do it, just to watch her crumble. I toyed with the idea. Late nights, I'd scribble pros and cons in a battered notebook, my mind flipping between paternal devotion and icy bitterness. Was I willing to drag my children into a nasty legal war just to see Olivia suffer? Each time I tried to decide, I heard my daughter's giggle in my memory, or recalled the relief on my son's face when we played board games together. My rage and my love dueled constantly. One evening, I found myself sitting in my car outside the gym, engine off, watching the flow of people through the glass doors. Brandon's silhouette passed by a few times, greeting clients, handing out towels. He looked so carefree, so smug. My blood simmered. Just as I was about to leave, I saw Olivia enter. They exchanged a brief, charged look. Then she headed toward the back. He followed, a few steps behind, obviously trying to be discreet but failing. I don't know what pushed me, but I got out of the car and walked inside. The clang of weights and the upbeat music felt jarring against my swirling mind. A few people recognized me from when I used to pick Olivia up. I nodded stiffly and kept going, heart pounding. I stepped into a hallway leading to staff offices, right where they'd vanished. And there they were, near the end, talking in hushed tones. She had tears on her cheeks, gesturing with frustration, while he stood with arms crossed. Then he noticed me. His face paled, and Olivia turned, eyes widening. "Daniel," she said, voice catching. I said nothing, just stared at them, that cold, deadly anger pulsing under my skin. "Go ahead," I murmured. "Don't let me interrupt." She closed her eyes. We were discussing the future, the kids. Brandon placed a tentative hand on her shoulder. "Olivia wants to be sure you won't do something drastic." I huffed a bitter laugh. "You're worried about what I might do. How noble." A staff member passed by, glancing curiously, but didn't linger. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You can keep this charade. I'm done interfering." Olivia opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. "Just know I have a stack of recordings that prove everything. And if I want to, I can bury you both in scandal. Your gym might not look kindly on a manager sleeping with a married trainer." Brandon tensed. "You wouldn't." I gave him a cold stare. "Don't push me." Olivia wiped her tears. "Daniel, please. I never wanted it to come to this." I leaned in, voice trembling with rage. "This is exactly where you led us. Now, live with it." Then I turned on my heel and walked out, leaving them in stunned silence. I was shaking so hard I could barely drive away. The release of that confrontation didn't bring peace, only more turmoil. Days bowled into weeks. I saw the kids sporadically, meeting at a neutral spot or picking them up from Olivia's mother's house. Each time, I clung to them, trying to mask my bitterness with love. But the tension with Olivia hovered like a storm cloud, threatening to drench them in confusion and heartbreak. Finally, I reached the limit. I realized my anger was a poison, corroding what little self I had left. Sitting in that motel room one bleak afternoon, I stared at the mirror and hardly recognized my own reflection. Dark circles under my eyes, stubble that had gone from rugged to unkempt. My expression was hollow, eyes dull. This was the moment I decided that the greatest revenge was not losing my soul for them, but reclaiming it for me. I picked up my phone and dialed her number. She answered on the second ring, voice tentative. "Daniel, I'm done hating you," I said, my voice steady. "I need to move on. For my sake. For the kids." A long pause. "I understand." Her tone was subdued, as if the fight had drained out of her too. "We'll talk about custody," I went on. "We'll do something fair." She let out a shaky breath. "I appreciate that. I truly do." I nodded to myself, gripping the phone. "As for Brandon, I don't care. If he makes you happy, or if it's just a fling, that's your choice. You're not my concern anymore. The kids are." "Thank you," she said softly. I swallowed, summoning the last shred of dignity I could muster. "Goodbye, Olivia." Then I ended the call. That same evening, I went back to the house to gather more things. The place was dark and quiet, as always. I wandered from room to room, remembering the ghost of laughter, the fleeting glimpses of what we once had. In the master bedroom, I paused by the bedside lamp. The images of her and Brandon flashed in my mind again, that raw betrayal. For a moment, I trembled with fresh anger. But then I closed my eyes, exhaled, and let the wave pass. Gathering a few final items, My watch, a stack of my old manuscripts. I turned to leave. That's when the front door opened. I heard footsteps, then Olivia's voice calling my name. I stiffened. "I'm here," I said, stepping into the hallway. She looked tense, hair pulled back, wearing a jacket over her fitness clothes. "I had to see you." I frowned. "Why?" She swallowed. "Because I felt everything changing. I wanted closure." Her eyes shone with tears. "Something like that. I'm sorry to barge in, but I knew you were coming to grab some stuff." I nodded, setting down the box I was carrying. We stood there in the semi-darkness. "Well?" She took a shaky breath. "I know we can't go back. I hurt you in ways I'll never be able to fix. But I need you to know, I never wanted to lose you. I just didn't know how to find you again." A bitter smile crossed my lips. "Maybe I was lost for too long. Maybe you didn't look hard enough." She wiped a tear. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I simply stared at her, my heart a knot of regret, anger, and something else. Then I said quietly, "Time will tell if you really are." She nodded, biting her lip. "I'll do whatever it takes to make sure the kids know we both love them." "That's all we can do," I said. She reached out a hand. I stared at it, remembering all the times I'd held that hand, all the warmth that once passed between us. Now it felt like an artifact from a past life. I didn't take it. Instead, I picked up my box and walked to the door. "Take care," I muttered, stepping outside. She didn't follow, just stood there, tears sliding down her cheeks as I shut the door behind me. The final confrontation came 2 weeks later when Brandon tried to see me again, probably to clear his conscience or to talk about how the gym dynamic might affect Olivia's job. I was on my way to the lawyer's office to discuss custody arrangements when he flagged me down in the parking lot. "Daniel," he called, jogging over. "We need to talk." I sighed. "What for?" He hesitated, running a hand through his hair. I want to make amends. I know you probably hate me, but..." I cut him off. "Stop right there. I have nothing to say to you." He glanced around the deserted parking lot, a bit desperate. "Please, man, I need you to know I'm not trying to replace you. The kids, they're your kids. Olivia, she's not even sure we have a future together. She's so broken up about this. I feel like I should just leave, but then My laugh was harsh, echoing off the concrete walls. "You want me to give you permission to keep her, is that it?" He shook his head. "No, that's not it." "Then what?" I snapped. My anger flared hot. "You want me to bless your relationship, to pat you on the back and say, 'Thanks for showing me how worthless I am.'" He winced. "I'm sorry." I narrowed my eyes. "You keep saying that word, but it means nothing. Here's the thing, Brandon. You might have won her body, maybe even her heart for a while. But in doing so, you lost your own decency. And me. I might have lost my wife, but I'm finding my spine again." He backed up a step. "Daniel, I never meant." "I don't care what you meant," I snarled, stepping forward. "Olivia was my wife. You stole something I treasured, turned me into a paranoid wreck. Congratulations. Now you deal with the fallout." A flicker of fear crossed his eyes. I took one more step, fists clenched. For a second, I contemplated hitting him, letting all that fury surge into my fist. But I saw my reflection in his terrified expression, and I realized I didn't want to be that man. Violence wouldn't fix a damn thing. I forced myself to step back, my breath ragged. "You two deserve each other. Don't talk to me again." He exhaled, relief flickering across his face. I turned on my heel and strode away, leaving him to absorb the venom of my words. It all ended quietly. The divorce was finalized. We shared custody, split weekends, and weekdays. The lawyers hashed out the details, dividing property. I let her keep the house for the kids' sake, though it stung. People told me I was generous, but it was more about cutting ties cleanly. Brandon stayed in the picture, but from what I gathered, their relationship was fraught with guilt and uncertainty. I didn't care to hear the details. Life moved on in a sluggish march. I eventually found an apartment near the kids' school, so they could come and go easily. My freelance writing stumbled at first, but I forced myself back into the craft. Time dripped by, each day a mixture of bitterness and slow healing. And then one day, after months of minimal contact, Olivia called. It was evening, and I was half-heartedly editing a manuscript. I almost let it go to voicemail, but answered at the last moment. Her voice was subdued, cautious. "Daniel, it's about the kids. They're asking if we can all do something together, like go to the park or a movie. They'd miss having both parents around." My throat tightened. I looked around my small apartment, the cluttered desk, the scattered notes. "They told me the same," I said. I wasn't sure what to say. She paused. "I don't want to confuse them, but maybe we can show them we're still a family, in some way. We don't have to do it often, just once in a while." I gripped the phone. Images flooded my mind. The kids laughing in the backseat, the four of us sharing a pizza in the living room. A pang of loss hit me. "We can figure something out," I said, keeping my voice steady. She let out a shaky breath. "Thank you." I ended the call, my mind swirling. I stared at the half-finished story on my screen, the fictional love that had once been a bright dream. Everything felt distant now, or maybe I just felt the cold truth, that I had been needed once, but now I had to need myself more. That the only way to move forward was to stop tearing myself apart. It was a chilly afternoon when I saw them again as a family. Me, Olivia, our two kids at a small park by the water. The kids ran around, playing on the swings, while Olivia and I stood by, arms crossed in awkward companionship. She asked me about my writing. I asked about her training schedule. We avoided talk of the past. There was a stifling politeness between us, but the children beamed with happiness, oblivious to the tension. When we finally said goodbye, I knelt to hug both kids tightly. They laughed, showing me the leaves and rocks they'd collected. My son asked if we'd do this again, and I found myself smiling, genuine this time. "Maybe," I said softly. "Let's see how things go." I caught Olivia watching me, eyes full of unspoken regret. But we didn't say a word to each other. She nodded once, then turned away. The kids followed, waving over their shoulders. My hands felt empty as I waved back. I left the park alone, the wind biting through my jacket, and stopped at a small overlook by the water. Waves slapped the shore, gray and cold under the overcast sky. Standing there, I realized that everything felt hollow yet strangely calm. The rage I'd lived with for so long had ebbed into a scar, still raw, but no longer bleeding. A short, cold final, I thought. That's what my life had become. The destructive wave had already crashed, leaving wreckage in its wake. Now all I had was the slow, grinding work of rebuilding. I took one final breath, tasting the salt air, letting the memory of betrayal pass through me and drift into the distance. There wasn't a neat resolution, no triumphant conclusion. Just me, and the wind, and the knowledge that I'd survived. Yes, I was alone. Yes, I was hurt beyond measure. But I was alive, in my own way. And for the first time since discovering Olivia's affair, that realization felt like a step toward something resembling hope. I turned and walked back to my car, the cold wind nipping at my face, each footstep steady, purposeful, final.